What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. This is the Real Housewives of Dallas Season 5 Reunion Part 2. Thank you so much for only giving us a 2-part reunion, which you really didn't even need a 2-part reunion, but I'm going to let you have that as a 2-part reunion. So let's start with the fact that, once again, we have Tiffany and Cameron going at it. Listen, I don't know what crawled up Cameron's ass and died, but this was just painful to watch. It got to the point where even the other ladies were asking Cameron to stop. And here's the thing. Cameron, they brought up the dog food thing again. And Tiffany was like, you know, for you to compare something that I eat every week in my home to dog food. And the fact that you would rather eat dog food than to eat chicken feet. And Cameron was like, well, I don't understand. It's just food. And she was like, no, but she was like, I ate everything at dim sum. And Tiffany was like, so let's understand that we're moving beyond that now. We're moving beyond the fact that you ate, whether you ate it or not. You were attacking my culture. And those types of comments were attacking my culture. And she said what I said last week, and I'm so glad she said it. She said, the reality is you're so privileged and so ignorant. I said, oh, she called her ignorant. She said, you're so privileged and so ignorant that you don't even understand how you were offending not just me, but my culture. And Cameron kept wanting to say it was just about the food. It was about the food. And she just couldn't wrap her brain around the fact that this was a cultural thing. So then we went a step further and we started talking about, what did they start talking about next, child? Then they started talking about some of the comments. She was saying, well, you know, Stephanie made a comment that she would rather eat, you know, Travis's ass than eat, you know, chicken feet again. And she was like, well, I don't understand why you're saying this about me. I mean, once again, I mean, I wasn't the only one. You know, Stephanie said something too. And Tiffany was like, yeah, but Stephanie didn't make it about make it about the culture. She didn't like publicly do it. Like she said it in her confessional or whatever. But she didn't tweet out a whole statement about it. Like, right. So then, child, then they moved on to, what was it? Because they stayed on this for a minute. Then they moved on to, let me look at my notes. With the race thing, they moved on to, oh shoot, it was something else. But then they talked about the fact that she was talking about how Tiffany was selling t-shirts, and if she was so offended about it, why was she selling t-shirts about chicken feet? And Tiffany was like, because it's merch. Like, what? Like, it was merch. She said that they showed another clip of when they were getting food at one of the events, and Cameron made the comment, well, this is better than chicken feet. So then, you know, it came up about, well, you're so concerned about not wanting to be labeled racist. And she was like, well, who wouldn't want to be in this climate? And I was like, you know what, now that's a valid point. That is a valid point. But here's the problem, Cameron. Do I think you're racist? No. Do I think you're ignorant? Yes. And do I think that you didn't understand, no matter how much Tiffany tried to explain it to you, you didn't understand that what you were doing was offensive to her as a Chinese immigrant. What you were doing was offensive. And it was like, Cameron wasn't listening to understand. Cameron was listening to defend herself. And she kept pulling out these screenshots of these tweets and these texts. Now, one thing, we did catch Tiffany in a little bit of a little fibby fib, because Cameron said that she did reach out to Tiffany a few times throughout the season to check on her, see how she was doing. And Tiffany was like, yeah, I don't remember that, child. You know, Cameron done pulled out the screenshot of the text message of her checking on her when she left early from the little party. And Tiffany responded. But, you know, I don't know if that was necessarily an intentional lie. I think it was just one of those things where Tiffany was like, girl, don't sit here and act like you was, you know, reaching out to me that much, that often, that, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that deep. It wasn't that deep. So then Andy was like, well, can we just move on? Like, can we move on? And Cameron was like, well, I mean, I've tried before. And Andy was like, okay, but this time, is there a way to move on? And Cameron just kept wanting to go back and rehash everything. And Andy was like, listen, we're moving on now. Like, that's it. Like, whatever happened in the past, can we move on? And Tiffany was like, yeah, I mean. And Cameron was like, well, let's hug on there. Here go Tiffany. Oh, I didn't know we was hugging. I didn't know that was part of this. So it was interesting, but what I absolutely love and what I'm here for is that I felt like, Tiffany, you spoke the truth. I think a lot of times we try to skirt around issues as it pertains to race, especially when it's not black and white. And I think a lot of people are so conscious of black and white, even though sometimes they're not. But when I say conscious of black and white, I guess what I mean is, I think if Tiffany were a black woman and Cameron was talking about pig feet and how disgusting and gross pig feet was, I think Cameron would be conscious of the fact that if she insulted pig feet, that she would be insulting something that is a part of black culture. Because even if you don't eat pig feet, you as a black person, because I don't eat pig feet, but pig feet is eaten in my family. And I understand the cultural reference and connection to African Americans, because not, you know, but anyway, that's a whole nother story for a whole other day. I could do a whole live on on the cultural reference or whatever. So then they start, oh, that's what the other part was. They were talking about the party and how Tiffany kind of was doing a little too much at her events in the beginning, and she was. And I said it in my reviews. You know, I do think she was a little aggressive with making them eat the chicken foot. Because let's be clear, even though I support where Tiffany is coming from, child, I don't want to eat no chicken foot either. I just wouldn't have handled it the way Cameron handled it. Anyway, like I said, I don't eat pig feet. I don't eat chitlins. You know, I'm very, very selective about what I put in my mouth. Okay. So, I know it don't look like it, but I am. Anyway, so then they talked about the crickets on the pizza. And Brandy was like, well, to be fair, I threw up. You know, at the time I was in my first trimester. I didn't know it. And so I think that might have had something to do with it. But, you know, I wasn't upset with, you know, Tiffany as much as maybe some of the other ladies were. So maybe it was best that it was on my pizza and not their pizza, because maybe it would have been. So then Cameron going to talk about something. Well, that's against the law. I mean, that's against the law. And she's going to bring up a statute in Texas about putting stuff in people's food. And here's the problem, Cameron, because here's why no one can fucking take you seriously. One, because that was stupid as hell to look up the law and find out that Tiffany, it was a prank and it was silly, and that you took it that serious that you had to look up a law about it. But two, you can't even say it right. She's going to say the penal code. You mean penal code? And y'all know Tiffany corrected her, right? But Tiffany brought up a good point. She said, I can't help but think if that were Brandy that had done it, everybody would laugh and move on. And I think to a certain extent she was right. To a certain extent. Brandy gets a pass. Now, Brandy this season was the I'm so sorry, I can't look like I'm having too much of a good time, because then people are going to forget that I'm supposed to be contrite and remorseful about my racist rant that I did. Well, it wasn't a rant. Let me not put 10 on 20. My little racist skit, I guess, for lack of a better word, that I did. But the regular Brandy, come on. So we move on from there, child, and then we move into, so then they did this whole montage of all the things that the ladies had pronounced wrong or said wrong throughout the season. I guess they didn't want Cameron to feel too dumb. I don't know. So we did that. Talked a little bit about, then we got into Deandra's storyline. They talked about the shaman situation, and, you know, they did bring up the whole ghost thing and how Brandy was like really making a big deal about it. And Deandra's thing was this. Deandra said, listen, I'm a Christian. I don't feel like, you know, going to a shaman was going against my Christianity and going against my Christian faith. Like, I very much believe in God, and I just don't see where, you know, I don't see where that's a contradiction in my faith. They did talk about the fact that he is a hairstylist and a very talented one, and that, you know, being a shaman don't pay the bills, so he still do hair and makeup. And he's done hair and makeup for Deandra and for Stephanie. Now, I don't remember Brandy defending herself too much. You know, I feel like Brandy was really, really quiet throughout this whole situation. I feel like she was really, really quiet. Then they talked about Deandra and Mama D getting into this huge argument. Once again, Deandra had to explain that she didn't change her last name for any type of, you know, clout or any type of standing in the community. She was like, I mean, I was a kid. I didn't understand, you know, that being a Simmons would get me further than being. And Andy was like, girl, you was 19 years old. You understood. Like, let's be clear. You understand at 15 what a Rockefeller is versus a Johnson. Like, come on, stop it. Like, you knew. Now, whether you did it for that reason, I don't know. And I don't even think I care. Which, nah, I know I don't care. But it doesn't negate the fact that it did help you. So at the end of the day, yes, this man was there for you. This man loved you, and you wanted to show some sort of, I guess, honor to him and change your last name. Listen, nobody knows your real intent but you. Now, Mama D, she remembers it the way she remembers it, and we know how Mama D is. Just because Mama D said don't make it right, but Mama D ain't gonna change her mind. Let's be clear. That's it. That's all. She ain't changing her mind. So that's what it is. Cameron did stand up and defend Deandra and say, listen, I don't know whether, you know, I wasn't there and I don't know what Deandra's intent was, but what nobody can question is how Deandra felt about him. You know, if you went to his memorial and you saw Deandra give up and give him, you know, and give him the respect that she gave him at that memorial service, then you knew how she felt about him, and I wouldn't question that. So go ahead. Good for you, Cameron, standing up for her. Okay. The only thing they really brought up was they did ask Brandy, you know, you running around with dildos and stuff like that, you know, would Jesus approve? Which I don't see how that's a comparison, but whatever. Now we got into Deandra's story as far as this whole money and this inheritance situation. So we're getting a little bit more clarity, just a little bit more clarity. Deandra agreed to split the inheritance with her brother. Now, what she said on the show was that she won in court. One of my subscribers was saying how if there's another heir, that the court would have probably made her share it with the other son. I don't know that to be true, but neither here nor there. She said she did share her inheritance with her stepson. I mean, not her son, her brother. Sorry, brother, her half-brother, stepbrother, half-brother. But that he then sold part of his inheritance back because I guess he wanted to cash out. Because let's remember, for whatever reason, however this is set up, Deandra doesn't even have free reign. And Deandra's in her 50s. And she still doesn't have full control over this trust. So maybe the brother, it was one of those situations where the brother was like, I need cash now. So he sold back part of his inheritance, and Deandra cash. She said she bought it from him because she was like, why wouldn't I buy it from him and keep it in the family, yada, yada, yada. They explained that, you know, her biological dad was worth more money than her stepdad. Now, the look on Cameron's face says she didn't agree with that statement, but she didn't elaborate on it. Either way, it's a bunch of rich people fighting over their money. All of that, I don't even care about. I really don't. Here's the part I care about. And Andy, I really needed you to ask this question. Deandra, when the hell you gonna get control of your money? Like, you sitting here arguing and fighting, and you ain't speaking to people, and people ain't speaking to you over money you can't even spend. You are still literally getting loans from your mama to pay your housekeeper. Ma'am, how you gonna be sitting on a trust? She said it was worth $30-40 million. How you gonna be sitting on a trust worth that much money and you can't pay your damn girl? Listen, I guess that's rich people problems, because that whole situation just don't make no damn sense to me. I guess it's rich people problems because it don't. I'm serious. I really need to understand how that, I mean, I understand that that's clearly how it's set up. Then Deandra apologized to her mama. She said, you know, I was wrong for talking to her like that. I would never do anything like that. I can't believe I said it. I embarrassed her. I'm so sorry. She forgave me, but I feel bad. I was on national TV. My husband thought it was horrible because he would never talk to his mother like that. Yada, 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 Buddha, Buddha, Buddha. Glad y'all made up. Okay. Then we got on Brandy. Child, listen, it was a whole avalanche on Brandy. First, they talked about what happened with the Asian thing last year, and Brandy was talking about once again rehashing how sorry she was and how, you know, how bad she felt about the whole thing, and how the situation with Tiffany. Now, she brought up a good point. She brought up a good point, and this is something that people do deal with. This is something that white America does deal with. Okay, when people make a comment or a joke that is a cultural joke, that if I say it, it's okay for me to say it as a black person making a joke about black people. But if a white person says it, they can't say it. It's not funny. It's not appropriate. But if I say it around them, can they laugh? And that's what Brandy was talking about when Brandy said she didn't feel herself about Tiffany, because there were times when Tiffany would make jokes like "love you long time," or she would do the Asian accent, and Brandy's thing was, well, can I laugh? Like, I know I can't say that joke, but can I laugh at the joke? Is it okay? And I understood where she's coming from, because I do know that is sometimes a line that some people don't know what they can and can't say, or where they can and can't cross the line, right? Then we talked about the car accident that killed her mother-in-law, and her daughter was in the car. And it sounds like it's one of those situations where, but for the grace of God, her daughter is still alive. They were hit by an 18-wheeler, and the car flipped. And then the 18-wheeler fell on the car. And she said that her daughter had a couple of broken bones, but for the grace of God. They said that the mother-in-law was killed on impact. And so, I mean, that was just, I can't wrap my God. So, I'm so glad that Brandy, I'm sorry for her mother-in-law, but I'm definitely glad that her daughter was able to survive that, because it sounded horrible. It's horrible. Then, of course, we had to talk about the videotape of Brian getting caught with the woman back in 2018 down to Vegas. Listen. To make a long story short, Brandy said, listen, he stuck with me through all this mess I've been dealing with this year with the racist situation. He really had my back. He was really there for me. And I, at this point, can't see me not being there for him. You know, he just lost his mom. He made a mistake. It was 2 years ago. And yes, I'm hurt. And yes, I'm angry. But I'm working through it. And so she's not going to leave him. At least not right now. Stephanie talked about how worried she was about, because she said it happened during spring break, and so she was traveling with her family, but how she had, a family friend go check on Brandy, and Brandy was sitting in the room crying in the dark, holding the baby, and it was just sounded really, really bad. So I do feel bad, even though I don't have a lot of sympathy for Brandy for a lot of stuff. I do absolutely feel very, very bad for Brandy about that whole situation, because it just seems like this has been the year from hell. And even though she walked away with a beautiful baby, she said that whole pregnancy, she was anxious because she didn't know she was pregnant. And she said she was drinking, which we saw it on because she was pregnant the whole time they were filming. Brandy was drinking the whole damn season. She didn't know she was pregnant. She said it wasn't until after they were done filming, she went in for her regular checkup. They take a urine sample, and the doctor was like, you're pregnant. And she said Brandy was so upset that the doctor even asked her, well, is it Brian's? And Brandy was like, yeah, it's Brian. She said, oh, because you're so upset. She said, well, I've been drinking, and I've been this, and I've been that. Like, I haven't been taking care of myself. But she has a beautiful, healthy baby. So, but somewhere in there, they blame Leanne. Now, listen, unless they know something that I don't know how you blame Leanne for this. So, basically, they were like, well, this is what Leanne does. I mean, she gets these things, and she holds on to them until the most opportune time to release it. If Leanne had a videotape from 2 years ago of her husband booed up with some woman down to the Vegas, why would she wait until the end of the season to release the tape? If this was Leanne. Now, they said that Leanne is very angry because Leanne is angry at Brandy because she doesn't understand why Brandy is still on the show, but she got fired. Now, let me say this. I understand. And I agree with Leanne. If you let Brandy stay, you should have let Leanne stay. I don't feel like Leanne did anything worse than what Brandy did. The only difference is what happened with Brandy happened off camera, on her own personal Instagram, versus Leanne did what she did on camera. But here's my problem, and I'm gonna go there for a second. Here's my problem. If we say we really want to create a better situation, a better environment, and a better world, the better thing for me, from where I sit, the better thing for us to do was to have Leanne on the show and let's talk about it. Leanne, I need you to understand that why what you did was racist. I need you to understand that what you did offended Carrie, how and why it offended Carrie. That is what I need you to understand. And if that means we got to go to group counseling and we got to have a kumbaya moment and all of that, that's fine. But here's the problem. When we get into this cancel culture, then nobody figures it out and nobody wins. Because all I see now is now I'm angry like Leanne is. Now I'm just angry. Because I really don't know what I did or said that was racist. And now I don't have a job behind it. But the person who everybody said that she was racist too, she still gets to keep her job. So if we're going to fire one, fire them all. But if we're going to keep one, keep both of them. And like I said, that could have been part of their storyline this season where they have a whole fucking ethnic sensibility circle with the shaman and a therapist. And you could have thrown Tiffany in the mix and her fucking chicken feet with Cameron. I mean, we could have had a whole moment here. Anyway, that was pretty much it, y'all. I don't know how this review got so damn long, but that was pretty much it. Then they talked about, you know, the ending of the season. Now, Tiffany ended the season with a whole little nosebleed. Tiffany, I ain't looked at your Instagram today, but I hope that for the sake of the rumor mill, you address that bloody nose. It could be a variety of things, but we already know where people automatically go when somebody has a bloody nose. We already know where people's mind goes to. My mom gets random bloody noses because of a medical condition that she has. So I know that it doesn't always have to be something nefarious. And it happens the same way with my mom. We could be sitting there talking and I'll be like, "Mom, you need to get a tissue." And she, "Oh, okay." So it happens, you know, and so I'm not saying Tiffany got to tell us her business, but just to stop the rumors from going left, you may want to say something, Tiffany. But she did say it was a hard season for her, and she felt, sometimes she did feel quite alone. Stephanie apologized. Cameron apologized. Tiffany, I hope you come back next season. I absolutely hope you come back next season. And you know who else I hope comes back next season? Leanne. As much as Leanne got on my damn nerves, y'all need her. I'm out.